He stood there, trembling, a legend grieving the loss of another. When Bill Cosby approached the microphone at Malcolm Jamal Warner's funeral, no one could have predicted what would follow. Tears flowed freely from his eyes as he revealed a shocking truth, one that had never been shared with the world. In that moment, the full weight of his words hit harder than any camera could capture. But what exactly did Cosby say? And why did his words leave even the toughest people in the room completely speechless? The bond between Bill Cosby and Malcolm Jamal Warner wasn't just for show. It wasn't scripted. It was real, personal, and built on decades of mutual respect, mentorship, and shared experiences. From the very first moment they met on The Cosby Show, Malcolm wasn't just another co-star. He became a son to Cosby, and when the news broke that Malcolm had suddenly passed away, the world was stunned. But no one was more shattered than Bill Cosby. What transpired at the private funeral left everyone in shock. It stunned even those closest to the family. Cosby didn't just mourn, he spoke from a place of raw, unfiltered pain. His words exposed deep regrets, buried memories, and the darker side of fame that had shadowed both of their lives. This wasn't a rehearsed eulogy, it was real, unscripted emotions spilling out. For many in that room, it was the first time they truly understood just how close these two icons were, and how deep the struggles had gone behind the scenes. And now, we're diving into it all. In today's video, get ready to hear exclusive accounts from those who were there, witness reactions from co-stars like Felicia Rashad and Tempest Bledsoe, along with shocking revelations about Malcolm's final days. There are disturbing details about his life that many tried to keep hidden. You won't believe what Bill Cosby said in his eulogy, and why his words left everyone in tears. This is where things get emotional, raw, and completely Stay with us till the end. You don't want to miss this. Trust us, it's going to be a ride. From the very beginning of The Cosby Show, Bill Cosby took a young Malcolm Jamal Warner under his wing, not just as a co-star, but as a father figure. At just 14 years old, Malcolm, who played Theo Huxtable, quickly became the heart and soul of the Huxtable family on screen. But behind the scenes, the bond went even deeper. Insiders from the set often revealed how Cosby would spend hours with Malcolm after filming, mentoring him on everything from the television industry and personal branding to, more importantly, how to navigate the world as a young black man in an industry that rarely offers second chances. Cosby saw something special in Malcolm. He treated him like the son he never had. And Malcolm, he returned that loyalty with unwavering admiration and respect. In a 2012 interview, Malcolm himself said, "Bill taught me how to be a man. Not just how to act like one on TV, but how to be one in life." However, as the years went by and scandals began to swirl around Cosby, their once tight relationship started to quietly unravel. Malcolm, known for maintaining a clean and respected reputation in Hollywood, began to distance himself not out of hatred, but out of a need to protect his own image in a world that was changing rapidly in the face of Hollywood's landscape. Malcolm Jamal Warner began to distance himself from Bill Cosby not out of animosity, but as a matter of self-preservation. Despite the growing distance, those who were close to both men say that the emotional bond never truly faded. So, when the news broke that Malcolm had tragically passed away at just 54 years old, in what some still call a mysterious drowning, Bill Cosby was reportedly devastated. Sources say he collapsed in grief, repeatedly whispering, "Not my Theo, not my Theo." What happened next was something no one could have predicted. Bill Cosby, frail, aging, and overcome with emotion, requested to speak at the funeral, and what he said would leave everyone in the room frozen, unable to speak. The church was packed, the cameras were kept out, but inside the air was thick. With grief, confusion, and a haunting sense of finality, Hollywood elites, former co-stars, longtime friends, and devoted fans had gathered to say goodbye to a man who had grown up in front of the world's eyes and remained respected through it all. But nothing could have prepared them for what happened when an elderly, trembling figure slowly walked up to the pulpit. Bill Cosby, escorted by two aides, one on each arm, stood before the casket of the man he once called his TV son. With tear-filled eyes, he gazed out at the mourners, the weight of the years filled with trials, convictions, and controversy bearing down on him. But despite everything, Cosby was here for one reason: to speak about Malcolm. His voice cracked as he began. "I knew this young man before he had his first beard, before the world called him a star. I called him my boy, not my biological son." But something Mara, son of spirit, gasps rippled through the room as Cosby opened up, not just about their time together on set, but about the private moments, the quiet talks, the inside jokes between scenes, the times he watched Malcolm cry over rejection, heartbreak, and the pressure Hollywood placed on him. He continued, "This industry can eat you alive, but Malcolm stood tall. He walked through fire and never let the smoke touch his soul. But then Cosby's speech took an unexpected dark turn. With a stern gaze, he declared, and yet there were people around him who didn't protect him. The room fell into stunned silence. There were whispers, dangers, and pressures. And now he's gone. Not because he was reckless, but because others were. The room fell completely silent. Nervous glances passed between the mourners. Had Cosby just hinted that Malcolm's death wasn't an accident? That someone or something played a part in it? Even Felicia Rashad, seated in the front row, reportedly dropped her head, closed her eyes tightly, bracing herself for what was coming next. And then, Cosby ended with one final heart-wrenching line. "Theo, wherever you are now, forgive us. We couldn't save you." Tears began to flow freely. Even the most composed in the room, actors, executives, pastors, couldn't hold back their emotions. But beyond the sorrow, there was a deeper, more unsettling feeling. Suspicion. Something about Malcolm's death didn't sit right, and Cosby had just cracked open a Pandora's box no one was prepared for. While the world was still reeling from Cosby's cryptic words, Felicia Rashad, the woman who played Malcolm Jamal Warner's mother on The Cosby Show, finally broke her silence. And what she revealed, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Shockwaves rippled through Hollywood and beyond. After maintaining her composure throughout the funeral, Felicia Rashad sought out a quiet media room days later for a private interview. But this wasn't with a major network, no. It was with a trusted journalist she had worked with before. Her reason: she needed to speak her truth. No cameras, no filters, just the raw reality. And the first thing she said? "I believe Malcolm knew something was coming." He didn't say it out loud, but he said enough. The world held its breath before Malcolm's tragic drowning, something rare, given their busy lives. He'd called late at night, his voice tired, distant, but with an undeniable urgency. According to Rashad, Malcolm opened the conversation with a chilling line. "If anything ever happens to me, I just want you to know I love you, Mama." Felicia Rashad was taken aback. At first, she laughed it off, brushing it off as Malcolm just being emotional. But what followed wiped the smile off her face. Malcolm admitted he'd been under intense pressure from certain executives and old associates. People who were trying to drag him back into situations he'd long left behind. Suddenly, people from his past were reaching out, but not with good intentions, he said. "They want me to stay silent, but I can't do that anymore." Felicia pressed him, asking what he meant, but he only responded with, "You'll see. It's going to come out soon." She begged him to clarify, urging him not to go down a path that could put him in danger, but he deflected, laughing gently and changing the subject. Still, his tone never returned to its usual lightness. There was weight in his words, a quiet heaviness that hadn't been there before. Then, Felicia Rashad dropped the bombshell that changed everything. "I believe Malcolm was preparing to expose something. He didn't tell me exactly what, but he was scared. Not for his career, but for his life." That statement reframed everything. Was Malcolm's death truly a tragic accident? Or was there something more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Was he, as Cosby suggested, let down by those who should have protected him? And what exactly was Malcolm preparing to expose before his untimely death? Rumors began to swirl that he had recorded files, old emails, and contracts tied to Hollywood deals that were never meant to see the light of day. Some speculated he had dirt on powerful executives, while others claimed he had grown disillusioned with the entire industry and was preparing to walk away for good. Whatever the truth was, Felicia Rashad's confession only added fuel to a fire that was burning hotter with every passing day. It wasn't just fans who were grieving anymore. The loss had sparked the beginning of an investigation. As the days passed after Malcolm Jamal Warner's shocking death, the public slowly began to accept the official story. An accidental drowning during a solo retreat? But from friends, former co-stars, and even members of Malcolm's own family, something about the story never sat right. So, let's break it down and expose the shocking inconsistencies in the official narrative. Let's take a closer look at the police narrative. According to the initial report, Malcolm checked into a secluded lakeside cabin resort just outside of Vancouver. Surveillance footage shows him arriving around 4:17 p.m. on a Thursday, parking his rented SUV and unloading groceries along with a duffel bag. The staff described him as tired but polite, his usual mellow self. As one front desk employee put it, by Friday morning he was seen on the dock, sipping coffee alone and writing in a leather-bound notebook. A peaceful routine, right? But by Saturday morning, his body was discovered in the water, face down near the rocks at the far end of the dock. There were no signs of struggle, no signs of trauma. The official cause of death: asphyxia due to accidental Drowning sounds pretty neat, right? But here's where it starts to get suspicious. Inconsistency number 1. The missing call logs. Malcolm's phone was recovered water damaged but not beyond repair. Digital experts worked their magic and managed to retrieve parts of his call and text history from the cloud. What they found was downright chilling. At 11:03 p.m. on Friday night, just hours before his body was discovered, Malcolm had attempted to call 3 people back to back. One was his former publicist. Another was a mysterious contact saved only as LL, still unidentified. The third was Felicia Rashad, but here's the kicker: all of these calls went unanswered. So why weren't these calls mentioned in the official police report? How could something this critical, this revealing, be left out of the narrative? This brings us to inconsistency number 2. No footage, no witnesses. The resort had numerous surveillance cameras, especially near the dockhand area where guests often go to relax or fish. Yet, curiously, there's no footage of Malcolm leaving his cabin that night. How is that possible? Yet, strangely, there's no footage of Malcolm leaving his cabin after sunset on Friday. If he walked down to the water alone, why wasn't there any video? Officials claim the cameras weren't recording at the time due to a technical failure, a coincidence, or perhaps something more deliberate. Then, there's inconsistency number 3. The locked cabin. When the cleaning staff entered Malcolm's cabin on Saturday morning just before his body was discovered, they noted that the door was locked from the inside. So, how did he leave the cabin if the door was bolted? Was there a second exit, or was someone else with him that night? These aren't just small errors. These are massive cracks in the story being told, and the plot thickens. 2 days after the funeral, an anonymous employee from the cabin resort contacted an independent journalist, claiming that someone had come asking for Malcolm the night of his death. This guest, reportedly wearing a black hoodie, didn't sign in and left within 10 minutes. Worse yet, security was instructed not to question him. That person is still unaccounted for. So, here's the burning question. Was Malcolm Jamal Warner's death really an accident? Or was it a message? Was he silenced because of what he knew? Was someone trying to prevent the truth he had hinted at to Felicia Rashad from ever coming to light? And if that's the case, who has something to lose? As the memorial service reached its most emotional moment, it was Bill Cosby himself who slowly, solemnly, and visibly shaken, stepped up to the stage. At 87 years old, the once towering figure appeared far more fragile than fans had ever remembered. But as he approached the podium, a heavy silence fell across the room. Every eye was fixed on the man who had once mentored Malcolm Jamal Warner, as though he were his own son. And when Cosby began to speak, his voice cracked not from age, but from the sheer weight of heartbreak. "I didn't just watch Malcolm grow up on television," he said, his voice barely holding together. "I watched him grow into a man, into an artist, into a soul that lit up every room. He was more than Theo. He was my son." Those words hit like a thunderclap. There was no script, no jokes, no showmanship, just a father figure mourning the loss of someone who had been a vital part of his life for over 4 decades. Cosby reflected on their early years filming The Cosby Show, how Malcolm didn't just memorize his own lines, but everyone else's too, just in case something went wrong. He spoke of Warner's discipline, his quiet resilience, and how, even in recent years, Malcolm would reach out to Bill just to check in on him. Despite the public scandals that had tarnished Cosby's own image, Malcolm never turned his back. "On me," Cosby revealed, "even when the world did, he stayed. He reached out. He reminded me what family really is." Cosby paused, the silence in the room deafening. And then he said, "And now he's gone?" Just like that, he looked down, visibly fighting back tears. The room hung on his every word. Then, in a voice heavy with emotion, he continued, "They say a man lives twice, once when he's born, and again when he's remembered. If that's true, then Malcolm will live forever. In every laugh, every line, every heart he touched." The crowd was in tears. Even those who had long distanced themselves from Cosby couldn't help but be moved by his raw humanity. This wasn't just a tribute, it was an emotional reckoning, a final goodbye between a father and his TV son. And just when it seemed the weight of the moment couldn't get any heavier, Cosby left the audience with one final line that shook the entire venue. "If I could trade places with him, I would. That's how much I loved him." The room erupted in sobs. No one expected such raw vulnerability. No one expected Cosby to break down like that in public, but he did. And that moment quickly became the headline heard around the world. Bill Cosby breaks down over Malcolm Jamal Warner's death. "He was my son. But that wasn't the only moment that would leave fans speechless. As the memorial service drew to a close, most of the guests had quietly begun to file out of the cathedral, leaving behind the soft notes of a lone piano and the lingering scent of fresh lilies. But near the front, where Malcolm Jamal Warner's casket lay draped in white roses and photos from his life, one figure remained rooted in place. A woman with trembling hands and eyes full of unspoken pain. It was none other than Karen Molina, White Malcolm's longtime ex-girlfriend, and a fellow actor who had once shared both the screen and real life memories with him. Though the two had split many years ago, their relationship had been widely known in the industry as one of the few sincere, private, and deeply emotional Hollywood romances. But no one could have predicted what would happen next. As the room emptied, Karen slowly walked up to the casket, laid her hand gently on the polished wood, and whispered something no one saw coming. Yet, someone nearby recorded every word. "You were the one. You've always been the one." Karen Molina White broke down as sobs shook her shoulders, leaning over Malcolm's casket. "I'm sorry we didn't make it work. I thought we had more time. I thought we'd get one more chance." Those standing near the front, including Kishia Knight Pulliam and Felicia Rashad, were visibly shaken. It wasn't just grief, it was the kind of soul-crushing regret that only those closest to someone can feel when they lose them too soon. And then came the words that would go viral by evening. "I never stopped loving you. Malcolm, never. I hope you knew that." Cameras may have been off, but whispers spread like wildfire. Karen's confession ignited a ripple of reactions across social media. Fans flooded old photos of the couple, with messages like, "She's always loved him. You can see it in every picture. This is the kind of heartbreak that never heals. Hollywood romances fade, but this was real." Later that evening, Karen released a short statement on Instagram, a black and white photo of Malcolm smiling, with the caption, "I never got to say goodbye the way I wanted to. You were my peace before this world became too loud. Rest easy, my love." The post amassed over 2 million likes in under 10 hours. As the curtain closed on this emotional tribute, it became clear Malcolm Jamal Warner wasn't just a brilliant actor or a beloved TV son. He was a man who left a crater-sized hole in the hearts of those who truly knew him, loved him, and never got the closure they deserved. His death may have shocked the world, but it unearthed the raw, tender truths behind the image he projected, truths of a love that had never died, a father figure forever mourning, and fans who finally realized just how deeply he was cherished. Behind closed doors. Rest in power, Malcolm Jamal Warner, 1970 to 2025. You were more than Theo. You were a son, a brother, a lover, a friend, and you will never be forgotten.